This is Studio 809.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Outdoors with Hiking Bob podcast. I'm your host, Hiking Bob Falcone. You can find me on my website at hikingbob.com, which has links to my social media, my photography website, all the other podcasts I've done, and also you can send me an email or sign up for my newsletter, which I really appreciate if you did that. And if you have any suggestions, comments, thoughts, drop me a line. All that at hikingbob.com. Today joining me is my co-host Kevin Wild Wessendorf. And Kevin, this is the New Year's Day episode. I don't know that we've ever done a New Year's Day episode. So Happy New Year, Kevin.
Thank you, and same to you.
So I could check if we've ever done a New Year's Day episode. I'm not sure that we ever have. But anyway, besides all that notwithstanding, Kevin, how was your Christmas?
It was fantastic. It was very low key and chill. For those of you that are local, you are probably aware of the Cheyenne Mound Resort, that is southwest of the Springs, or in southwest part of the Springs. And we've actually gone there before for Christmas, but they have a buffet that is phenomenal. Now it's about $100 a person, so it's pricey. But for a buffet, it is not a Golden Corral. It's actually like the food is incredible. So I went there with my mom, and it was a really pretty view of Cheyenne Mound and the surrounding mountains, because during lunch the clouds rolled in, and there's like a little bit of snow on the mountain, so it's just made for like a really neat view.
Cool. I have had the brunch there. It is awesome.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
It's been a while. It's been a while since I've been there, but it is a great brunch. Probably one of I'm sure it's probably the best one in the area. Cool. Well, that was good. You got to spend some time with your mom and had a good brunch. That's excellent.
Yep.
Great.
How about you?
Well, we're down here in Phoenix, so my mom is here. She flew down here. She's going to be staying with us for a little while, at least until right before we leave to head back to Colorado. So she's been here. So it was a nice Christmas day. Pretty low key. I did do a Christmas Day hike. I did post it. I went up Camelback Mountain here in Phoenix, which is a difficult hike. If you think the incline is difficult, you ain't seen nothing. At least the incline has got evenly spaced steps made out of timber and not crumbly rock and big rocks, and you have to pick your way through it. And not taking anything away from the incline, but it is a difficult hike. But I did that. I haven't done it in a while, and I wanted to challenge myself, and so I did that. And then we had a nice prime rib dinner that my wife made that was just to absolutely die for. So,
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah, nice day. So I can't complain. Kevin, we talk about New Year's resolutions. We talked a little bit about them in our last podcast, and if anybody's seen it in my current, most recent column in The Independent, I talk about New Year's resolutions and kind of how we set ourselves up to fail, I think, with resolutions. I think we said we want to do something special, we want to do something great, and then we end up really setting ourselves up to fail sometimes. So I came up with some low-key resolutions that are still goals to meet, but not outrageous. That, you're not going to fail at them. And one of the things I put out, like I could tell you your New Year's resolution is do the Continental Divide Trail, but the amount of planning and time that works, most people would resolve to do it, but probably never could. It's an elite few of people who do that. I've done a piece here, a piece there, another piece here, but it's not attainable. But I did say, if you're going to do that this year, let me know, because it might make a good story for my column at the paper, or might make a good podcast. So I came up with some goals for people that are more attainable, but still good goals to meet. So I don't have any goals other than to come out of the end of this year in at least not any worse shape than I am leaving 2024. So we'll see what happens. Kevin, do you have any resolutions or goals you set for yourself for this year? We kind of talked about it a little bit last time, but I don't know if you had anything new.
No, the main thing that I'm dead set on and focused on is, now that I'm after this crazy year, I feel like I'm back on my feet with my personal life and my health, my job, Um, and so I really missed out on a lot of hiking this past year, for health reasons and all that stuff, obviously. And I am really focused and excited to get back into my old hiking routines where every single weekend I was doing at least one hike. And especially in the summertime, I would use time off from work to do the random huge hike, and I missed that. And I'm sad that I didn't get to experience a lot of that this past year. But I was trying to be smart too, with my health things. So yeah, I'm just really I miss doing the double digit mile hikes and kind of going all over the state and the surrounding areas. So I am putting a lot of emphasis on making sure that happens this year.
Well, that's a good one. I mean, that's an attainable goal, but it's still a goal for you to meet. So that's a good one to go for. Um, I usually don't set resolutions. My goal every year is to do 800 miles. We're going to reveal here in a minute how many I did because the day we're recording this, a couple days before the new year, I just did a hike that should put me over 800, but barely. But
Nice.
it's been a tough year. I don't know that I'm going to be able to do that in 25. I think when we last talked, I had mentioned that I was getting an MRI on my ankle to find out why it was having issues, and the MRI report came back and it's not great. Um, it read like a litany of tears and sprains
Ooh.
and stuff. It's not good. I've been able to make it through it without much trouble. I mean, I'm not pushing myself to the point where it causes any more injury, but obviously things need to be fixed. So I'll be seeing an orthopedist soon after I get back from my trip, and who knows what's in store for me. But so I may have to scale that back a little bit, but my hope is that when I come out of it at the other end of the year, things are better and I'm able to, um, more, able to get back into the swing of things and get back to doing 800 miles a year. I'm also getting older, which doesn't make it any easier, Kevin. Getting old sucks.
Oh, it does. Yeah.
Things get creaky and cranky and groany and oh my. But I'm fortunate that I'm able to keep doing this. So my resolution, I guess, if you can call it that, is to just keep plugging along, much like yours is. Um, I also want to keep doing this, the podcast, keep my column
Yeah.
at the Indie going. I want to make them better every time I do one. I want it to be better than the last one, if that's possible. And when I say if that's possible, not because I don't think I can do any better, but because I don't know that I can do better. If you know what I mean. It's like I know they're good, but it's not that I don't think they can be improved on. It's just whether I have the skills to do it, which I want to do, and I'm going to be working on a few things as far as that goes. Stuff I don't want to get into right now, but trying to make things better and bigger, and who knows. Or I might shelve it all and just say I'm retired. I don't know. I don't know. Who knows? I mean, I think it's good to always make, and it shouldn't be a thing we just do on New Year's. You should always be trying to make yourself better, or at the very least, not make yourself any worse, I guess. But so I guess that my resolution is going to be to do that. So we'll see what happens. Kevin, I'm going to do a thing here, and I know this is going to be visual, which is not going to be too exciting for people listening to this on the podcast. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, if I can figure out how to
Okay.
do that. And we are going to figure out how many miles I got this year. Okay, so you should be seeing my spreadsheet. And
Well, you did a lot of hiking this month.
yeah, well, yeah, I did a lot this month because I was way behind. So I'm going to share another screen here. So now you should be seeing a screen that looks like a map.
Okay, yep.
Okay, so that is the app I use to track my hikes. It's called Expert GPS. So that's the track that downloads from my GPS. And as of the 29th, I had 793.66 miles. And when this gets done downloading from my GPS, this will probably be the least number of miles over 800 I've ever done, but it has been a particularly tough year with injuries and a lot of other things going on. So that's why I'm pretty excited to be sharing this.
And for our listeners at home, I find this really, really exciting. So just try to live vicariously through me because I can see it. I tried looking for expert GPS, but I have a Mac and it's not available on Mac OS,
That's correct.
which is a huge bummer. Because it's definitely a program that I would love to use. But this was a couple years ago when I last looked, and there weren't a whole lot of options on like alternatives that were available on Mac OS.
Yeah.
So I think after recording this, I'm gonna go and see if maybe in the last couple years there are new software.
I don't know what's available for Mac. That's a good question, Kevin. I'm not sure what's available there. So today, 7.31 miles, and that looks like a bunch of stuff there because I've hiked in that same area. So let's do only showing this track. So 7.31 miles today. Let's shift over to the spreadsheet. And 7.31 brings me to 800.97 miles.
Yes, that's awesome.
So I made it. It was tough. This month was a long month. I hiked more days than not this month, and that included a couple days of traveling back and forth. There you go, folks. 800.97 miles. So I hit my 800-mile goal. I knew it was going to be tight. We're recording this the eve of New Year's Eve. I am probably going to take New Year's Eve off, so that should be my mileage for the year. And like I said, it's been a tough year. And let me just see, how many miles did I do this month? Because I really had to put the steam on. 89.28 miles in the month of December.
Wow.
So
You hauled butt.
I did, and several days, at least 4 days of that was travel time, and then days in between. And anyway, again, this isn't to make it a big deal. I know there are people who hike way more than I do. I know there are people, through hikers obviously do a lot more. I do, what I do. My point of this is a goal I set for myself. We talked about New Year's resolutions and goals. This is my goal for every year. I think this is the 7th year I've done more than 800 miles. Yeah, 2018 was the first year I did 800 miles. This is the 7th year straight I've done 800 miles. So it's just a goal for me. And it's not that I'm any better or worse than anybody else. There are people who will clean my clock, even people my age. I completely expect people younger than me to probably be able to do that pretty easily. But, I also have the time to do it. That's a big factor in why people can't do it. But it's an idea, just a goal to set, to meet. Because on a day when I don't feel like get my lead butt out of the chair or off the recliner or out of bed, I remind myself that I have this goal for the year, and my goal is to try to do as many new hikes as possible, which is one of the resolutions I put in my column, but to meet my goal of exercise, which is by hiking all these miles. So there you have it. That's as exciting as it gets. This is exciting.
No, I remember back in 2018, if I remember specifically correctly, I did 591 miles, and I thought I had actually gotten just a hair over 600 miles, but I made a mistake on the spreadsheet that I didn't catch until it was too late.
Oh no.
And I was so mad at myself because I had
Ugh.
plenty of time to hit the 600 miles and more in the last month of the year. But I was just like, cool, I hit 600. It's been a huge year for me. Like, I'm gonna relax a bit more in December. And when I could have just done, I easily could have done just a few more quick hikes in Red Rock Canyon or Cheyenne Mountain, or both Cheyenne Mountain and a Cheyenne Canyon, and got above 600. But yeah, it was 591 or 592 miles.
Wow.
I
Yeah,
was so close.
couple of little after work hikes. An interesting thing I just noticed, I did 191 hikes this year, which is far more by sheer number than any other year I've done. Usually I'm in the 160 to 170 mile range. So, you could tell that I was dealing with some issues because I was hiking a lot more shorter miles, a lot more shorter hikes because I was just after a while I would just feel the pain and it would just be painful to go too much further. And I think we talked about it too. Cole had an injury, so when I would want to take him, he only had a range. We've
Yeah.
noticed in the last month or so that he is showing no signs of any injury. He has got a pep in his step again. He seems to be going longer distances, so he is
Oh,
completely
good.
recovered. So, I want to take him as much as possible. Any dog owner gets that. I don't want to leave him at home if I don't have to. So there you go. My resolution is to try to do 800 miles this coming year. We'll see what the orthopedist says. They want to put me in this thing called a walking boot, and I don't think you can hike very much in a walking boot because it stabilizes the ankle and stuff. If that ends up being the thing, then well, not a whole lot of hiking you do in that. So we'll see what happens. Kevin, I track all this with GPS. I do have a GPS watch, one made by Suto that I like. It's a backup for me, and I
Okay.
do use it occasionally. Sometimes I forget my GPS at home. I left it on the charger and I forget it, or I didn't charge it and it's dead, so I use my watch. But you had Garmin watches for a while. Then you went to Apple Watch a year or two ago, I guess it was. And you were telling me before we got on here you went back to Garmin. I'm interested in how that works. So tell me, how come you ended up going back to Garmin for your tracking for your miles and for your smartwatch?
So my first smartwatch was a Garmin Instinct, and I loved it. It was a very simple GPS watch. It had multi-band GPS support for GPS, Galileo, and GLONASS. So like having all those bands really helps with accuracy and because for years before that, I was using my iPhone to track hikes, which is not accurate. It's within shooting distance accurate, I guess, but it's not what I was looking for.
Yeah, I mean that's designed for people who want to know where to drive.
Yep, exactly. And so I had the Instinct for a few years, and in that time they came out with the Instinct 2 and then like the 2S and 2X and like various other models. The Instinct Tactical, if you want to feel manly, but I
For your inner Rambo.
yeah. Um and then Apple came out with the Apple Watch Ultra, which is their smartwatch, but focused on the outdoors. So it has all kinds of features for like going from diving and running and weightlifting and hiking and just a ton of stuff and mountaineering um
Rambo meets triathlete.
yep, exactly. And it had a larger battery than their regular watches and stuff. So it's like, I would love to have that app or that iOS integration with my phone and my MacBook uh and like I was like, oh, it'd be really cool to be able to download apps onto it and do this and this and this with it. And that was about 2 years ago, and I realized in that time that I was frustrated with the battery life because the Instinct would last like 2 weeks on one charge,
Wow.
and that's with a lot of use of GPS tracking. And the Apple Watch Ultra would last like 2 or 3 days uh, without the use of GPS tracking. And I have found, and obviously rechargeable batteries degrade over time. But just the last 6 months or so, just anytime I went on a hike, I felt like the hike was 8 miles or more. That's when I would start being like, okay, I'm glad I brought a charger and stuff. And so I found that annoying. So the last like 3 or 4 months, I started doing a ton of research on Garmin watches because I really like the Instinct. So I was just gonna get the Instinct 2X, but it's it's sold out everywhere, and it's likely because they're going to come out with an Instinct 3 soon. And so I did a ton of research and I found that there's the Garmin and Enduro 3, which is basically an Instinct on steroids. Another thing about the Apple Watch, I realized I didn't actually use the majority of the features on there. I only had one extra app on there for hiking, and it was just like a lot of it was being unused. So I didn't mind going back to a Garmin, which is still a smartwatch, but it's more basic. And what's really cool, this watch has a solar panel ring around the screen. So if I'm outside and it is sunny, it does recharge. It's slow, but it does extend the battery life. And as we're recording this, I've had this watch for little over a day now. So I still have to go through and tweak settings and see what I want and like, in terms of settings. I put the watch on out of the box with 17 days of battery life being
Wow.
reported left. And because I was outside most of today and yesterday too, it is now at 23 days of battery life. And I have not plugged this thing in yet. And especially with my goal of getting back into these huge double-digit mile hikes, uh, I would love to do something like around 30 miles at least once this year because I really missed those hikes too. And I realized like I need to watch that can last that and more in in terms of a battery life. And it basically all the I had to relearn a couple things, but it all the same stuff that the Instinct had, plus more. It's got a color screen, but it's called an MIP screen, which is memory in pixel. So that helps save more on battery life because I realized I didn't benefit much from the Apple Watch having an what's called an OLED screen. So it's like it's bright, like it looks nice, but it's bright, crisp colors and all that stuff. But it's like, what does that benefit me? When on the Garmin Enduro 3, I can still use maps and Topo Maps. I can preload them on. You know, it just I am a huge fan of Garmin watches. And actually, Bob, and of course I spent 3 or 4 months researching this because I was like, okay, should I really give up the Apple Watch or maybe get the Apple Watch Ultra 2 or um should I switch to Suunto or there's a, a couple other brands that I saw, but just familiarity and my good experience with the Garmin Instinct, I was like, okay, I think I'm just gonna stick with the Garmin. A part of my goal was to get ready for this year, and that meant getting a watch better suited to my goal. And and so yeah, I like this past month I've gotten new boots, I've gotten some new outdoor clothes. Oh, and what's awesome is my current job, they used for years, like since they started in the 40s, the only days off were Christmas Day and Thanksgiving Day. The previous owner and CEO passed away. So the board that's in charge now, they are making a lot of changes. And so they're introducing more holidays day off. And so I was really
Cool.
bummed out that I wouldn't be off on New Year's Day, but they added that. For the past 8 years, have always done a New Year's Day hike.
Well, who's shopping for a new car on New Year's Day?
You asked me because we're open on Christmas Eve. Now we close early, like
Right.
really early, but I'm like, why would someone want to spend their time at a dealership on Christmas Eve?
Well,
Like,
some people do buy cars for people for Christmas. I just doesn't happen that often, and they probably already have it all set up. I can almost kind of sort of see Christmas Eve, but New Year's Day, the only people are going to get in are people who are hungover from the night before. They're not going to buy anything. They don't have their head on. Well, I'm glad your new boss doing that. So you're going to have more time to use this.
Along with everything I explained, I did read several reviews that said that the current generation of Garmin watches uses a new modem for the GPS tracking or radio or whatever you want to
Receiver,
call it.
yeah.
That is apparently like far superior in accuracy than the Apple Watch Ultra, which is already a very accurate watch. But if I can just get a few 0.0123 um, miles of more accurate data, like I'm all for that.
Awesome. It's interesting you mentioned that because I don't know, a week or two or three ago, I came across an article online about somebody did a thing about a comparison of fitness watches. These kind of watches, GPS watches. Before I had this one, I had a Casio, which was nice because it was pretty inexpensive, had a really nice screen, but the bad thing was you had to charge it every night. You
Oh
did
yeah,
not get more than 24 hours out of it. So I went and bought, and then all of a sudden it died. It died twice on me. One time the touchscreen died on it. It was in warranty. I sent it back to Casio. They sent me a new one. The next time it just seized up. It was out of warranty, and Casio was like, "We don't fix them. It's out of warranty. Have a nice day." Okay, fine. So I went looking for a new one, and these watches can be pretty expensive. They are not. I mean, there are less expensive models, but as with anything else, you give up things, you gain things as you go up and down in price. It's, you make your best decision. So I found the Sunto at REI. It was at a price I could swing, and it was pretty good. And at one time, Sunto were the real expensive watches. They're not anymore. This one still only gets me about 4 days before I have to charge it. That said, it charges pretty quickly. So I wish it had longer battery life, obviously much better than the Casio. The one thing that I don't like about the one I use is that the audible alerts, like if I get a text message or something, is hard to hear. And most of the time I don't even hear it. And the vibration against the wrist is too brief and not strong enough. So I oftentimes, even though I'm wearing the watch, don't hear or feel that there's an alert for something. The big complaint I have with it. The Garmin's all around just get stellar reviews. This article I saw also recommended a company called Coros,
Oh yeah, yeah.
C-O-R-O-S. I don't know if you looked at them at all. They have pretty good reviews, mid-range price. The only thing I saw that I wasn't crazy about was the display was less than spectacular, but I've never seen one in person. I've never compared them. So I think next time I'm looking for one of those, I'm going to take a look at the Coros watches if I can find one I can actually get my hand on, or buy one from someplace that'll let me return it if I don't like it. But I may end up with a Garmin. I don't know, Kevin, can you hear the alerts on your Garmin pretty well? Are they audible enough? My wife has an Apple Watch, but just a more basic watch. It's not obviously the Ultra or anything. And she can hear, her alerts really easily. But I just don't like the one I have. And the volume is up all the way, and it's just not loud enough for me.
I actually don't know because I have the audio turned off.
Okay.
But the vibration alerts are like they let you
You know
know.
they're there.
Yeah, and uh one more thing that I forgot to mention about the watch, and our listeners at home won't be able to see this, but it's got a built-in LED flashlight.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and it's shockingly bright. Like it works extremely well. Because there have been a lot of times where I've had to whip out my phone to turn on the flash in order to navigate something. So it's not a replacement for a headlamp if you're hiking at night, but it's nice to have. Like I think it's really cool.
I'm thinking just if you have to read a map or something like that, you can just flip that on real quickly and not ruin your complete night vision.
Yeah, yeah.
Or something like that. I can see where if I'm using that when I'm out taking like my Milky Way pictures in the dead of night, when you want to preserve your night vision, I can use that to look at my camera without a big blinding light. I can see where that could be very handy. Oh, you may get me looking at one of those yet.
And one more thing about this, they were only in stock in the flagship store of REI in Denver. Because I wanted to see them in person and play with them and stuff. instead of ordering one online and I wait a while, it comes in and it's like, oh, I don't like this, and I send it back. It's just a
Who,
hassle. So I was
and
like,
nobody wants to wait for anything anymore.
yeah, and plus, I just haven't done a day trip to Denver in a while where I just didn't really have like a specific goal and or event to go to, like a concert or a baseball game or something. So I was like, I'm just gonna hang out in Denver all day, and REI will be the first stop I make. Um,
And that's
I
a
forgot,
beautiful store. That
I
REI store
forgot
up there
how
is gorgeous.
nice it is because I haven't been in a very long time because we have an REI here in the Springs. So it's just like cool. It made me think of when kids ask their parents like, "Hey, I want McDonald's," and the parents say like we've got food at home. The REI store here in the Springs is nice. I mean, it's a great store and it has most anything you need. But the flagship store in Denver, yeah, it's so nice and it's huge and it's really confusing to walk around in because there's all these multiple different levels. So it's not like, oh, there's one set of stairs, but there's stairs that take you over here, and then there's another set of stairs that take you over there, but the floors don't connect, and yeah, but it's a great store though.
Yeah, it's a nice thing with their flagship stores are that the idea is that they carry every single thing that they sell, as opposed to like the smaller store in Colorado Springs, which now is split up into two buildings across a parking lot
Oh
from each
yeah, yeah.
other. Because the store that they've been in, they own it, it's small. And then a piece of a building across the way became available, and it's a short walk across the parking lot. So they moved some stuff in there. They're able to expand their offerings and stuff like that, but still not a flagship store. I really think that the Colorado Springs store could be 3 times the size it is and have plenty of support for it. But
Oh yeah, yeah.
and trust me, the people who are at the REI store, they know that too.
Plus here in their current location, they're pretty landlocked.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot around it. I would love to see them open up a much larger store like up north or out east. Uh, Because if we can have a Shields of that size, and there's nothing wrong with Shields, I just prefer to shop at REI because of the member benefits. But um, like I think we definitely have room to have a much larger REI.
Well, and a place like Shields is like, and they're fine stores, but they're like Sportsman's Warehouse and Dick's Sporting. Well, not so much Dick's Sporting Goods, but stores like that where they try to cater to a really wide range of
Yeah.
activities. Where so they have shooting stuff and archery stuff and things like that. You won't find bikes there necessarily, or you won't find a wide assortment of stuff where you go to like a place like REI, or even if you go downtown to Mountain Chalet, for example, you'll
Oh yeah.
find that they've narrowed their scope so they're able to offer a lot more stuff in that scope than trying to be a broad store, if that makes sense. It's the
Yeah.
difference
Yeah.
between going to a specialty store and going to a department store. So there are things, I go to Sportsman Warehouse to buy, and there are things I've gone to Shields to buy. But if I want really outdoor rec, hiking, cycling, skiing, running, then I'm going to go to an REI or a Mountain Chalet or someplace like that that's more specific to what I'm looking for than a bigger, broader outdoor sportsman type store. So,
And I just remembered a joke. So I have two friends who used to work at REI, and they would joke how REI stood for returning employee income. If they would get paid and then spend their paychecks at REI where they work.
funny, funny. Quick side note about REI, and I mentioned this in my newsletter a couple weeks ago. But REI has always had a great return policy.
Yes.
One of the reasons why we've talked about it, one of the reasons why I buy my hiking boots there is because I'm an odd size to fit. I can find very little in my size, and almost no stores carry it. And local stores, and for reasons that I've tied with them how they do business, either won't order stuff special, or if they do, it comes with caveats like, well, if you wear it outside, you can't return them. Well, suppose they don't fit me well, and how do you know if hiking boots work well if you wear them inside? I'm not faulting them for that. It's just the way it is. Where REI allows you to just wear your boots outside, and I've done that. I rarely and return them if they just don't work out for you. You have to understand you have to break things in.
Yeah.
And then, and it used to be that you could return anything at any time, and that got abused pretty badly. I saw people return boots that had obviously had 1,000 miles on them, and they were returning them because they weren't satisfied with them. And I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. And eventually, REI changed that policy. You can only return stuff for up to a year. And there are some restrictions on, I think, electronics and stuff. You can only return for a certain period of time. And that seems to be reducing the amount of abuse. I think that's abuse. If you wear a pair of boots for 1,000 miles, there's nothing wrong with them when they wore out. They wore out.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it. But I read an article where REI has sent an email to a small number of people who are their customers with the letter saying, you can buy from us all you want. You can never return anything to us again. We will not accept returns, because they were obviously returning an inordinate amount of products.
Good.
And it was enough that, I mean, and it was a small percentage. I think it was in the single digits, the low single digits percentage. But, when you talk about the millions of customers they have, it was thousands of people who got this letter. So you can buy from us all you want. When you try to return something, they will not accept it. If you mail it in to return it, we're going to send it back to you. You're not going to get your money back, because they were abusing it. And the point I'm getting at is, if you use something and you wear it out, it's worn out. It's not, it's not to your satisfaction. But I'm glad they took that approach, as opposed to penalizing the rest of their customers by changing the return policy again and shortening it to like 6 months or 90 days or something, which would make you no better than a Walmart or a Kmart or something like that. So I'm glad they took that approach, that they were able to, and of course technology, you can track things better and everything. The technology has gotten to the point where they can pinpoint the people who are doing it, recognize that it's a tiny percentage of their customer base, and instead of pissing off their entire customer base, just piss off the people who are abusing it, because who cares if you piss them off? You're abusing it anyway.
I'm so glad to hear it, because it makes sense that a company like Walmart would do a blanket change of a policy because they have too many customers. REI is still a corporation. It's still large. I'm sure they make a massive amount of money every year. But I can imagine their customer base is much easier to track, and especially if someone's abusing the return policy, because I know if you're not a member, the return policy is different too.
Right, it is.
So those people who are abusing it are probably members, so it's even easier to track and stuff. So yeah, I'm really glad to hear that they went that route.
Yeah.
And it's instead of a blanket, all right, we're going to switch to a 30-day return thing only now for everyone.
I'm lucky if I use something from them within 30 days of buying, because sometimes I buy it on sale knowing I'll use it. I'll buy something in the winter that I'm using the summer. I don't know if 30 days is going to be enough time, but give me a year to try it out. I rarely return anything. I've returned boots a couple of times when they obviously were just not the right size.
Oh, yeah.
And I've always tried to return them when I didn't wear the crap out of them. Like if I've worn them out hiking, I even clean them up before I return them. And usually you can tell. Like I just got a pair of boots just before I came down here. I've been wearing them casually to break them in. They are now at the point where I could probably start hiking with them, but I know already that they're going to be just fine. I just had to break them in. There are some boots that when you put them on, you feel the pressure points and the hot spots, and maybe you wear them for a couple of days and they're just not getting any better. I mean, that's the right thing to do, to return them. And the problem with my size is that a lot of the smaller stores, they won't let me do that. So I am not going to spend $150, $200 on a pair of boots that you're not going to take back from me if I decide that they're not fitting me properly, whereas they do it. So I know that the local stores, get a little upset with me when I don't buy my boots locally, but you can't offer what REI can offer, at least as far as footwear goes. So I have to kind of go to them to do it. And wearing them, you can only wear them in the house. Well, unless I've got rock climbing in my house, that's not going to do me any good. I mean, it's fine if I'm wearing casual shoes for dress or something. That's one thing. But these are hiking boots that I need to wear in the outdoors to know if they're going to fit me right. So Kevin, I want to thank you for another year of being on this podcast. We're approaching 430 episodes, and I want to thank you for being here and for continuing to be here this year. At least I hope you are. You haven't told me you're not coming back, so I'm assuming you're coming back.
I'll be back, and thank you so much for having me on the show for since
8+ years.
2016. Yeah.
Yeah, more than 8 years, so it's been a long time. A quick note for everybody, we've got this one coming out on New Year's Day, and we're going to have several more podcasts coming out later this month, but because of scheduling, there's going to be a few weeks before we get them out. So it's not going to be, and again, this is a twice a month, not every 2 week podcast. And then we're going to have a bunch of them come up all together. It's only because of scheduling, they're all going to be interviews and scheduling those that they had to be a couple weeks out. So you're going to go a few weeks without hearing from us, but then we will be back on here. So beg your indulgence. The interviews we have coming up will be well worth it, and I think you're going to enjoy them. We're going to be hearing from some local leaders in the outdoor community who will be updating us on things. So just watch for those in the next couple of weeks. But we're going to have a couple of weeks here where there won't be any podcast, but we'll make it up to you later in the month and going into February. Okay, Kevin, with that, I think it's time for us to say goodbye. And any last things you want to say, Kevin, before we say goodbye to everybody?
No, I think I'm good. I'm just really, really excited about the new year. I hope it's, to be blunt, I hope it's a much, much better year than this past year has been. So,
you and me, brother, for both you and me. So I hope we all have a better year. And for all the listeners out there, thank you so much for being with us for another year. Thank you so much for staying with us. For our Patreon supporters, and if you want to be a supporter, Patreon, patreon.com/hikingbob. We really appreciate your support. You make this podcast happen, and we can always use a little more support. So we appreciate it for all you out there on Patreon. And I think with that, Kevin, I just think we'll say goodbye and Happy New Year, everybody.
We'll talk to you later.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening to the Outdoors Hiking Bob podcast.